I'm Paula. This is How to Make Dinner, and we are making spring minestrone, and it's gonna be really good. This is one of those ones that's really not a recipe at all. It's more of a general method. This video will be loaded with tips on how to consistently make really delicious soup with no matter what you have. So this is a Dutch oven. I've got it over medium heat with a little bit of olive oil. So I have one decent sized onion here. So I'm fairly certain that minestrone just means mixed vegetable. So there's a lot of artistic license that you can take for what you put in it. And when I say spring minestrone, it means I'm kind of steering away from like the heavy kind of tomato sauce, like that tomatoey thick minestrone that we're all used to, like tomato, beans, dried herbs, and I'm going more fresh. So there's no tomatoes here, lots of green stuff, and it's really good. So an onion, some olive oil, a big pinch of salt. So one of the keys to, this is tip number one for soup making, is use more salt than you think from the get-go. So like that's a 5-finger pinch, and I'm gonna do like another 4-finger pinch just to kick things off. Tip number 2, always keep a little salt dish nearby because salt shakers are not gonna cut it. You can't measure it, you can't feel, you need to start feeling how much you're using. So I've got an onion. I've also got a leek. So I think that leeks are one of the most underrated of all the vegetables. They're so lovely and kind of grassy, and they've almost got this kind of like floral notes to them somehow. Maybe I'm just being too expressive now, but leeks are so underrated and so good. And if you're not really a leek user, a really good way to cook leeks is to cook them exactly the way that I did the braised celery in an episode from a few weeks back. I'll link to that for you. So just like slow cooked in some nice chicken broth and finished with some butter. It's like leeks are so magic. They've got an oniony-ness to them, but they're not like as sharp as onions. So tip number 2, or is this 3? I'm gonna lose track of all the tip numbers, just so you know. A really good tip for when you're making soup or anything that requires a lot of chopping is to scoop things up with a bench scraper like this. They cost about $2. If you do any baking, you probably have one already. And it's just so much easier to transfer your ingredients into the pot. So those are going in. And everything's just cooking for like a bit, you know, like a couple minutes. It's no big deal. So next into the pot is going to be carrots. Look at this carrot, by the way. Kind of cool. This carrot is a bit of a weird one because when I was thinking about making this, I thought everything's going to be green. There's not going to be anything non-green in here. And then I go and add carrot. But rules are meant to be broken, and dinner is meant to be about you. It's what you want. You've been following rules all day at work, right? So, I don't know what you've been doing all day. Make sure to keep an eye on this stuff so it doesn't get brown. I actually find that the brown flavor that you can get sometimes when you let things, cook things too high or you don't stir them enough, the brown kind of disrupts the kind of springy freshness that we're trying to achieve with this spring minestrone. I'm going to do both carrots. And in terms of sizes, I'm just trying to cut everything around the same size, but without being too fussed, because life's too short. Squeezing a lot of one-liners in here. So carrots are going in. And with soup making, to me, it's not about following exact recipes. It's more about using what you have, but with like a thought process. You know, it's not just like, oh, just chuck it all in. Like I've got 8 million things in my fridge. It all goes in the pot. It's kind of like, you know, like I wouldn't put mushrooms in this soup. I don't know. It just would add kind of an earthy brown flavor and vibe that I don't want. I will add fennel though. Look at this thing. Look at this thing, you guys. I bought this fennel at a corner market just around the corner from my house, and it's called the Market Garden in beautiful Vic West, British Columbia, Canada, Vancouver Island. This thing is insane. Like, we can make fennel tea for a month with this. I'm gonna use it later, but for now we're focusing on the bulb. I'm just gonna use half of this bulb because it's gigantic. I freaking love spring. Spring, the best thing about spring is probably, other than being able to go hang out on patios and have cocktails with my friends and sit in the front yard and have dinner outside, it's all about the veggies, I think. How am I gonna cut this? I'm gonna do these in kind of long, skinny slices. And you know what? I'm already kind of regretting that. I want them to be smaller. I want them to be the same size as the onions and everything. So we just turn them and go across again. So I want this fennel to be in little pieces about the same size as everything else. And you know what? I'm only going to use a quarter. That's going to make the rest of that fennel is going to make something else good. I don't know what yet. So fennel's going in. So we've got a nice little medley of green things, leeks, carrots, all cooking together in olive oil and a little bit of salt. Just kind of getting soft and sweating, they call it, which sounds weird, but it's true. And then goes the garlic. So I think that a lot of people are still putting garlic in right at the very beginning, but I find it burns really easily, so I kind of like having more stuff in the pot before I put the garlic in so that it's sort of insulated from the direct heat, because I don't like burnt garlic. It's kind of bitter, kind of permeates everything when it's burnt. So that's something I'm really careful about. This is one of those times when I'm not going to fuss too much about how finely it's chopped. It can be a bit chunky. I talk about that in my garlic video from a little while back. I'll link to that too. So that goes in. And then the last kind of veg ingredient is some green beans. But this could just as easily be something else green. It could be some leafy green like kale. It could be like snap peas or snow peas or regular frozen peas. This is just what we had in the fridge. So everything in here is serving a purpose. You've got the bright green, you've got the kind of oniony base, which is like the onions, leeks. Even the fennel, it kind of gives that like base to a soup, really good flavor. And soon we'll get to the bean and noodle section, which is a fun part. I'm cutting these pretty small because I want them to be small. I want this to be the kind of soup that I can just get a big spoonful of and get a lot of different things in my spoonful. So that's making up the bulk of the veggie department in this soup. So now that the onions are kind of soft and the carrots are kind of soft and everything's started to work, I'm actually just going to put in pretty much everything else at this point. The flavors are starting to come out of these things, so let's just get it rolling with everything in. So I'm going to put in a few bay leaves, like 3. I don't know where this like 1 bay leaf thing started. One bay leaf is never enough. I like the flavor of bay leaves. Like I love that flavor. So let's get it in there. And then beans, any kind of beans. I have some leftover cooked chickpeas that I made last night. I'm super obsessed with instant pot cooked chickpeas right now. It's totally my favorite strategy. And I made an Insta story about how I cook them in the Instant Pot. And I made it one of my story highlights. So you can go there and find the whole process. It's really easy and they're so flavorful and good. And then liquid. So liquid can be water, totally fine. It can also be stock, vegetable stock. In this case, I have leftover cooking liquid from the chickpeas, so that already has all the flavor that I put into there, which was garlic, salt, coriander seeds, and bay leaves. And I also have some chicken stock in here that I had left over from a rotisserie chicken. So this is just flavorful liquid or water, no big deal. I'm gonna put that in. This is a big thing for soup though. For me, I don't want to overdo it with the liquid. I want to put just enough liquid to cover, and then I can always add a little bit more because I don't like soup that's really watery. So you kind of have to control. This is your chance. You can always add more liquid, but you can't really take it away. And I'm actually probably going to add all of this because I'm adding the pasta, which is going to thicken things up. This is going to be so good. And the last thing to go in, as I crank this guy up, should come to a boil pretty quick. I'm going to throw in the noodles, alphabets. Why did we choose alphabets? Because they're so cute. That's the only reason. And they're small, and it kind of fits with the whole wanting to fit lots of different things into our bites. Like a penne here would you'd just get a penne on your spoon. Nobody wants that. Or like a rigatoni? No, I don't want that. I want something really small. Those like little tiny ditalini, those little tubes would work well. Orzo would work well, or the little stars. Just tiny, tiny noodles. So I'm gonna pour in some noodles. Not too many. I'm actually just gonna go by handful, because this could really quickly turn into like a alphabet noodle casserole if we're not careful. I think that's it. 2 little handfuls. One final stir. The heat's cranked. I'm going to put a lid on and cook it for about 10 minutes. 8 minutes. 8 to 10 minutes officially. Oh. I forgot to mention there's a little tidbit that you need to know. And that is, save your Parmesan rinds when you buy fresh parm for the sole purpose of chucking them in to your spring minestrone soup. Or like pretty much any soup, but this one especially. And it'll just extract all that delicious salty flavor from the Parmesan rind. So that's the tidbit. Now we can go back to cooking it for a few more minutes. So it's been about 7-8 minutes. The soup's been bubbling pretty aggressively because I'm trying to cook the noodles, and I put the parm rinds in there. So the last thing before I call it done is I'm just going to turn off the burner, and I'm going to add the fennel fronds in, like a massive pile of them. And this could be fresh parsley, this could be fresh mint, which if you were using asparagus or peas in your minestrone, like for the green component, a bit of mint would be really nice. What else could you use? Chives. Any fresh green herb that you would eat raw. Even dill. I love dill, but I feel like I've worn out my dill quota for this YouTube channel for the so far I've used a lot of it. So we're using fennel. And also we just have so damn much of it. So, burner's off. Everything's pretty much cooked. The pasta's almost done. Fennel's gonna go in. And then I'm just gonna give it a final stir. Ugh. I'm gonna put the lid on. And I'm just gonna wait for about 5 minutes. Yeah, you know how you put things in the fridge and they taste better? This is the same idea. You're kind of like giving it a minute to chill. Lid on, heat off, just walk away, have a shower, do something else you need to do, gather the family, set the table, and then it'll be ready. So I've taken out the bay leaves and the Parmesan rinds, and I'm just gonna give it a final QC. Oh my God. This is freaking delish. It doesn't need anything. All it needs is to be put in a bowl with a little crack of fresh pepper, because I love it. Look at this, it's so springy. A little crack of pep. And if you're a drizzle of olive oil type person, which I think you should be, you do that now. Apply the olive oil strategy and dive in. That's it. I'll have another bite. A big chunk of bread wouldn't hurt either. Oh my God, I forgot about the parm. And parm. Bit of parm, because why not? And now it's complete. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of How to Make Dinner. If you like it, I would love it if you'd subscribe, because it makes me feel really good. And it just helps a lot. Likes and subscribes and comments are all really good things for people trying to make it big on YouTube. So see you next time. Have a good week and eat some soup. So I'm gonna pour some more champagne. Did you ever call it Minestrone? It's a boring story. Telling stories. Just telling stories, making soup. I'm also really hungry.